Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, and as we do on the first Monday of every month at 12 o'clock hour, we bring on our good friend Joe Newby from the Conservative Firing Line, and he is the author of the book Banned: How Facebook Enables Islamic Jihad. Joe, welcome to Revealing the Truth.
Good morning, Eric. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. So, Joe, you must be absolutely going crazy there at the Conservative Firing Line with your hundreds of thousands of followers and your original contributors from Adina Kutnicki to Faye Higby, to just some really great authors and contributors that
Yes.
Greg Holt, that are really weighing into trying to get America to wake up to what's really going on in Washington.
Yes.
And it seems that there's a pattern that every day there is a crisis du jour. And the crisis du jour is whatever it is that's the new issue,
Right.
impeachment. But we still haven't closed out the FISA issue. We haven't closed out the Clinton email issue. We haven't closed out any of these things. Are we ever going to close them out?
You know, there are days, Eric, I got to tell you, I actually ask myself that more often than you know. Some of these things, especially with crooked Hillary Clinton, have been going on for, decades. I mean, this is a woman, Eric, who has more than 40 years experience lying and scheming and plotting, doing one thing or another uh, to essentially wrest power unto herself. She's power hungry. She's power mad. Um, Back in the 2016 election, I came right out, and I think I'm probably one of the few who have. I came right out and said in no uncertain terms that Hillary Clinton is without question the most evil person ever to be nominated to the White House by a major party. I mean, the only way for the Democrats to get even more evil than Hillary, in my opinion, in 2016 and on up through today so far, is for them to actually nominate Satan himself. Um, this woman, Eric, she is up to her eyeballs in corruption. Every pore of her body reeks corruption, lies. I mean, this woman, I can tell you stories that I heard from when I lived in Arkansas about Bill and Hillary Clinton. Um, it's frightening to think that she was actually that close to becoming the president of the United States. And what even scares me more is that there were people uh, who ostensibly were on our side of the aisle, alleged conservatives, who were perfectly fine with having her and George Soros and all of her little minions actually take over in this country to do whatever they want. And I thank God that Donald Trump won, because I shudder to think what this country would be like if she were in the White House right now.
It's beyond my imagination that the Republican Party is Republican Senate has not exerted. They are half of the legislative branch,
Right.
and if they find one half the House of Representatives to be out of line or to be inappropriate, to have exceeded their power. They have their own sets of checks and balances within the legislative branch. And
Right.
Mitch McConnell should have called out Nancy Pelosi on her being out of order and announcing impeachment proceedings without it going to a vote, without it being presented to the House, without it being presented to the Senate. But they're laying back like they are dead birds with their feet sticking up in the air, and
Right.
I'm embarrassed.
I am too, and I'm also questioning why is it that Lindsey Graham hasn't stepped up in his role as the Senate Judiciary Chair to take up some inquiries of his own. Why hasn't he done anything? There are so many things, Eric, that just frustrate me to no end. And to have somebody like Mitt Romney, for crying out loud, even after Donald Trump endorsed him for the Senate, Mitt Romney is out there doing his part, everything he can, to undermine Donald Trump. It frustrates me to no end. I heard something coming home from work this morning, and I was listening to Rush Limbaugh, and I think he hit it on the head, as he so often does. I don't think the Democrats. Oh yes, they want impeachment. Of course they do. I don't think Democrats will be happy until the entire Trump family is dragged into the street out of the White House and shot in the middle of Pennsylvania Avenue. But I think Rush Limbaugh hit on something this morning when he said that all the Democrats really want is to be able to peel away a couple of Republicans so that they can come out and say with a somewhat straight face that this is bipartisan, when you and I both know that it really isn't. It's not. There's nothing bipartisan about this. They're just trying to peel away a couple of weak-kneed, linguini-spined Republicans to go along with their harebrained ideas and their harebrained notion. This is why I think, Eric, that Trump's base has got to stand up, has got to rise up en masse and flood, literally flood, the House and Senate switchboards with calls demanding that they bring Adam Schiff, they bring some accountability and stand up and do the right thing. We have a few. Jim Jordan, to name one, and there's a couple others. Devin Nunes has been just absolutely brilliant. I love the way that he went after Adam Schiff for actually trying to get nude photos of Donald Trump from what he thought were Russians in the know, when in reality they were pranksters. But like I said, there are a few Republicans, but there's not enough. There's not enough Republicans coming up and demanding accountability for what Pelosi and Schiff are doing, especially when you stop and think, Eric, that both Pelosi and Schiff have ties to the Ukrainians. What's up with this?
We have not, for some reason, held anybody accountable for anything.
No. Not at all.
There's an election coming up, and everybody's saying, oh, well, the election will be your chance to make your voice heard. But there is a lot of time. A lot of time. And lots of things are going to happen during that time that will make people very upset. Why is nobody speaking out now? How is it that Jay Sekulow, how is it that Tom Fitton have all this access to all this FISA information, that have all this enough for report, much more than Mueller had on the Russia hoax. Why are we not bringing that out and indicting, turning this over to the proper authorities for either the Inspector General or a special prosecutor to engage in this? This takes me back to Jeff Sessions. I expected 2 years of draining the swamp. He's been gone a year or 3 years, and the swamp is filling up.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. That's why I say it's very frustrating, and I think there's a frustration across the country, especially among Trump supporters, and you know, it's no longer just Trump supporters. You know, not the what you would call the diehard Trump base that supported him back in 2016. There are, I mean, I've been seeing stories of liberal Democrats, rank and file liberal Democrats, who are fed up with what is going on. They see this double standard. They see the two-tier system that we have within the country, within the justice system, and they are not at all happy. They don't like what they're seeing Pelosi and the Democrats do. What have they done legislatively, Eric? They've done zilch, zero, nada. What have they done for prescription drug prices? Nothing. What have they done to bring down the cost of health care? Nothing. What have they done to help secure the southern border? Nothing. In fact, if anything, they're fighting like cats and dogs, trying to keep the southern border open so anybody can come into the country, whether they're legal or not, whether they're criminals or not. They're the ones attacking the Constitution, trying to get rid of the Electoral College. They're the ones trying to strip you and I of our right to keep and bear arms. You've got, I was going to say Eric Swalwell, but I meant Beto O'Rourke, out there saying, you know, yes, we're going to take your AR-15s. Oh, really? Whoop, that's a phone. They'll get that in the other room. So what are they? So what are they? What are they doing, Erica? Sorry for the phone. You know, what are they doing, really, when you stop and you think about it?
Well, they're not doing anything.
That's it.
There's no legislation being passed. There are no bills being drawn up. There's no presentation for it. Things are happening, but they are at the level where they're coming out of committee, and these are some older things, not a lot of new stuff. I just don't understand, and we're very much like the parallel in Israel, where we have a prime minister but no parliament, therefore nothing can be done.
Right.
And the Democratic Party has said, we hate Donald Trump more than we love America. We hate Donald Trump more than we represent you. All right? And we all have our jobs on the line. We all come up for re-election, all right, or the end of our political career in November 2020. They don't act like they want to be reelected.
Well, the problem, I think, is there's an arrogant condescension, especially among the establishment, types in both parties, both Democrats and Republicans. When you look at the sheer statistics, the stats clearly show that the vast majority of incumbents will get reelected no matter what. they will get reelected. It's very rare that an incumbent actually loses his or her seat. Most of the time, they get reelected because they're there in Washington. They spend most of their time raising funds, preparing for the next election. That's pretty much all they do. So until the electorate wakes up and figures out, hey, this isn't working. We keep reelecting the same clowns into office over and over and over and over again, expecting different results. And guess what? We keep getting the same thing. Um, at some point, people have got to wake up and say, something's not quite right here. you know, at least that's what you'd think.
So, what's the answer, Joe?
Term limits. There was a time when I would have argued against term limits, but I'm to the point now that I'm thinking, you know what? We have term limits for the president for good reason. Maybe it's time to start imposing term limits on members of Congress as well. 2, maybe 3 terms for House members, and no more than 2 terms for senators. That's kind of where I'm heading, the direction I'm heading, because what's happened is we've got career politicians in Washington, and all they do, Eric, all they do is spend their time raising money. That's all they do. They really don't do much of anything else. Sure, they go out and they make speeches and they do appearances in town halls and things of this sort, but most of their time in Washington is spent raising funds for the next election. And I think until we start putting a cap on that and say, okay, no, you're supposed to be a citizen legislator. That is, you go to Congress, you represent the people in your district and your state, and then after a couple, 3 terms, you come home, and guess what? You get to live under the laws that you helped create. And I think we need to get back to that. Short of, I think, a voter revolution, I think that's the only thing that will ever really work.
Do Republicans care enough to get out of their seat to do anything?
I think some do. I think there's quite a few there who are so comfortable in their position that they don't want to, that they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to make waves. I'm reminded of the time when what was his name? Mitchell was the House Minority Leader, and his motto was, for all practical purposes, go along to get along. And we're the minority; we can't really stop anything.
Right.
And I think there are far too many Republicans who are in this mode of rolling over and sucking their thumb when things get a little hard, because they don't want Democrats or the media, which is pretty much one and the same, pointing a finger of blame at them and calling them dirty names. And I think Republicans are going to have to obtain a backbone and get out and do something useful. And if they won't, then the voters need to tell them, guess what? You're out of here. You're fired. We're going to elect somebody else. If you're not, man enough or woman enough, or you don't have the backbone to do the job, we'll put somebody in there who does. Eric, that's one of the things that I like so much about the politics where I live. Typically speaking, those of us who live up here in North Idaho, we don't typically, I'll say typically, don't reelect the same person to Congress over and over and over and over and over again. We might, well, I think Raul Labrador, he was there, I think, for 4 terms, but that's rare. That really is rare. Since I've lived
Right.
here and all the times that I've been here, most of the time they'll get elected maybe twice, maybe 3 times, and then that's it. Um, when I first came up here back in the 90s, I met a woman by the name of Helen Chenoweth, and she kind of reminded me a little bit of Sarah Palin back in the day. I mean, she was a firebrand, and she didn't tolerate anything. I mean, she was the kind of person, Eric, who would have fundraisers. What was it? Endangered salmon barbecues for fundraisers. I mean, that was the kind of person she was. She not politically correct at all. She didn't care, people called her names. She just went about her business, and she did it with a smile on her face.
Right.
Um, but the thing I like about the politics up here is that if we don't feel that our representative is doing a good enough job, we're not going to let him or her sit there for 15, 20 years and continue to get reelected over and over and over again. We're going to do something about it, even if that means electing a Democrat. And that's actually happened a time or two up here. Not often, but it's actually happened. Um, so in my view, we've got, one of two things. Either number one, the electorate has to get more involved, more informed, and actually get out and vote, learn about the issues, and make an informed decision at the ballot box, or we enact term limits. In my view, those are the only two things that can be done. I don't know what else that we can do.
So here we have these buffoons in Washington. We have a Senate which we control.
Mm-hmm.
Can the Senate not come out with bills that are being sent to the House to get them to have to act upon those bills? Should they not be pumping out so much paper that Congress, that the House has to put it in committee, has to get it out of committee, and is so caught up with the Senate's agenda that they don't have time for their own games?
Well, the problem I think we have there is the Senate prides itself on being the, quote, most deliberative body in the world. The problem is, I think constitutionally, and I know there will be people who argue with me about this, and that's fine, but constitutionally, I believe that any bill where spending is involved has to originate in the House, because the House is the ones with the purse strings. So, yes, the Senate can introduce legislation, but it's not a case necessarily of them sending it to the House. The House has to come up with something, vote on it, and then the two bodies have to come together in some kind of a committee, a joint committee of some kind, to try to hash out the differences between the two. That's the problem that you run into there.
It's just it's mind-boggling that America is frozen, and that each day the news carries the agenda of the Congress, and then they go down their path of interrogating and questioning people who might as well work for TMZ or the National Enquirer. They have no credibility whatsoever. They are hearsay. They will not meet the test of evidence in a criminal court of law, but they give them 8-9 hours of time, and these are taxpayer dollars.
Right.
When does the taxpayer say, I've had enough?
Well, technically, they say that at the ballot box. But then again, it gets back to what I was saying before. We need an electorate that is A, informed, and B, is energized and motivated enough to actually get out and learn about the issues and make a decision at the ballot box. And unfortunately, you swerved into something, Eric. Um, you've mentioned the media, more than once. Excuse me. And I think that's a huge problem right there, because the media, what we call the media, I think of you and I, what we're doing right now is part of this thing that we call the media, because we're putting information out, we're putting our opinions out. People can watch us, listen to us, and they can make up their own minds, and they can say, yeah, maybe these people know what they're talking about, or maybe these people are giving me something to think about. Um, but the media, quote unquote media, is not interested, I think, in informing anyone, Eric. The so-called media, or what I call the Democrat media complex, um, is actually there to pursue the Democrat Party agenda, or as Rush and others say, to lead the Democrat Party agenda. Because, if you look at MSNBC and CNN, if those are the only two places where people get their information, they are going to be woefully ignorant on just about any given issue. Um, I remember years back, oh gosh, what was it? Um, 2010 or 2011. It was quite a while ago. I remember reading a story, and I remember I did a post for it at examiner.com when they were still around, um, about a man who he had done some crime. He had shot somebody, done something. He had gone bananas, wacko, and I think it was something about he blew out his television set with a shotgun or something to that effect. Um, anyway, when he was before the judge, he actually told the judge that it was MSNBC's fault that he did this. And I'm thinking, um, that was 9 or 10 years ago, but I can't help but think that maybe there's a few out there on the left who are doing nothing but getting saturated with disinformation and fake news and propaganda and hatred from MSNBC and CNN, and we're going to start seeing more violence. Um, I, I don't know if you look at Newsbusters, but if you don't, Eric, I recommend that you do. In fact, I recommend everybody in your audience go to newsbusters.org, newsbusters.org, and they do a fantastic roundup of the unbelievably biased things that are happening within both the print and the broadcast media, and almost every day. I mean, one article after another, MSNBC, MSNBC, MSNBC. And when you put it all together, I, you know, when you put all of that together, you get the impression that we've got two networks, MSNBC and CNN, that are so anti-Trump, so full of hatred, not just for Trump, but for his supporters, that they're basically fomenting hatred and violence against Trump and his supporters. And if those are the only two outlets where people get their information, you're going to have a lot of very violent, very angry, very upset, misinformed individuals. And that's what we've got in the electorate today.
Well, you're exactly right. We're talking with Joe Newby from the conservativefiringline.com with conservative insights into what's going on in Washington, with recommendations to follow Newsbusters, to follow the people who run the Tom Fenton's group, which is, I keep forgetting the name.
Judicial Watch.
Judicial Watch, and all the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act filings they have that you should keep your eye on Jay Sekulow and the work they're doing. Eventually, all of this information has to come out about Clinton, about the Clinton emails, about the FISA abuses. Yet, we are focusing on Adam Schiff inventing fictional Trump quotes, on Scarborough, fight Fox News by registering your friends to vote Democrat. Now they're talking about breaking the federal election laws and having you register people. This has become ridiculous. This is nothing less than revolution and anarchy, and it's being played out by the news media, which unfortunately is losing so much money that they cannot afford to go on much longer. And that's the reality of what's happening. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to continue to talk with Joe about what's happening so we can expose and combat liberal media bias. We'll be right back.
The Lord meets you right where you are, and so does Igniting a Nation's new live streaming outlets. You can now watch Revealing the Truth, Revealing the Bible, and Prophecy Revealed simulcast live each Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Vimeo, Periscope, and through our website, www.ignitinganation.com. No matter what device you are using, our program will automatically scale so you won't have to miss a single program. And if you happen to miss an episode, you can always subscribe to the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel and access over 1,000 interviews and never miss your favorite authors, special guests, and topics that interest you the most.
There are lots of ways to see Israel, but nothing compares to seeing the land of the book and the people of the book through the eyes of two Jewish believers who can take you on a journey that will bring the entire Bible to life. When you join Rabbi Eric Walker and his #1 rated tour guide, Edo Canaan, in Israel, you'll experience incredible teachings, first-class accommodations, and actually walk where Jesus walked. You will experience the Bible transforming from black and white into living color, and you will never see the Bible in the same way again. For more information, visit us at www.ignitinganation.com/events.
The Lord contends with what contends with you, and Igniting a Nation is committed to bringing to light each and every issue that faces a believer's life. Our live stream programming and teachings take you on a journey to finding biblical truth from a wide variety of experts who share their insights into a deeper walk with the Lord. We have assembled the most comprehensive panel of experts in the fields of prophecy, caregiving, healing from trauma, shame, and abuse, and so much more. We continue to expand our teachings and programming to meet your needs. We're committed to healing the nations with biblical truth. Visit www.ignitinganation.com to develop a deeper walk with the Lord and start your journey to a transformed life. The Bible commands us to study to show ourselves approved, but most study using Bible study tools and not actually studying the Bible chapter and verse. Igniting a Nation is pleased to present Revealing the Bible, recorded and taught each week before a live audience. We take you deeper into the actual Bible and verse in both Hebrew and English and connect the dots between the Old and New Testament. You can attend our 2 classes in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham, or watch the program every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time on ignitinganation.com and all our other simulcast outlets. For more information, visit www.ignitinganation.com/events.
Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking to Joe Newby, as we do on the first Monday of every month at the 12 o'clock hour for the Conservative Firing Line and conservativefiringline.com. Joe, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Eric. Good to be here again.
Joe, every time I see a headline and the name Joy Behar, they now want to put a new Christmas song out, change a beloved version of a Christmas carol into an impeachment anthem.
Well, this is a deranged left. I mean, all you have to say is Joy Behar, and you pretty much have said it all. I mean, seriously, Eric. I mean, that's it. Joy Behar. You know, you don't need to go any further. I mean, look, this is a woman who makes a career. I mean, she gets paid by ABC to come out and say stupid, insane, ignorant things. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying that because, well, quite frankly, it happens to be true. I remember back in 9/11, shortly after 9/11, Bill O'Reilly was on The View, and he made the comment that it was Muslims who flew the airplanes into the World Trade Center. We know that to be a fact, okay? Joy Behar went just absolutely bonkers. She went off her rocker. She stomped off the set. I'm not going to hear that. That didn't happen. And, you know, from that point on, my opinion of Joy Behar is pretty much as I've described to you. I don't put really any stock in anything she says, quite frankly, because I know that, A, it doesn't really carry much water, and B, it's going to be essentially fact-free and not, you know, really, quite honestly, not worth the time listening to it. You know, unless you just want to watch TV to get outraged. I mean, that's
Joe, I'm ugly enough and stupid enough for prime TV.
yeah, I know. I mean, I think you and I could do much better than the harpies on The View, quite frankly. But
You know, I listen to things, and here's the song. It's a rewrite of Joy to the World, and they're singing it. It says, Joy to the world, the time has come, inquire, indict, impeach. Let every heart prepare his doom. He's broken protocol, but stays above it all. Our POTUS is genius or Neanderthal. You know, if I was to call you a Neanderthal, that would be racist. Or what would it be? Cavemanophobia.
yeah. Cavemanophobia. That's about it. I mean, Eric, it's you know, the left has become a parody of itself. The modern left. I have come to the conclusion that the Democrat Party, along with their allies in what I call the Democrat media complex, which is this propaganda machine, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, ad nauseum, are deliberately pushing this country to the brink of another civil war. I don't say that lightly. I've been saying it for quite some time, and I was really surprised when I heard Pastor Jeffress talk here not that long ago about the Democrats creating a civil war-like fracture within the country. That's exactly what they're doing. He is exactly right. Um, and Donald Trump picked up on that. He put out a tweet, basically putting out what Pastor Jeffress said, and the left went bananas. Oh, Donald Trump's calling for civil war. No, he wasn't. He put out a quote, paraphrase a little bit, but he put out what this pastor said. But the pastor is absolutely right. When you've got William Weld, a former governor of Massachusetts, who's now running against Donald Trump and has zero chance of winning anything, okay?
Right.
When you've got William Weld coming out and saying, execute Trump, and that's what he said. He said this on national television. Execute Trump. That Trump is a traitor and he has to be executed. Okay? The left cheered him. The left loves it. The left loves that kind of talk. You got people like this guy at CNN. He writes for the Daily Beast and a few other left-wing outfits. His name is Rick Wilson. He's probably one of the most unhinged Trump haters out there, right along with Jennifer Rubin, who is allegedly a conservative. She happens to write for the Washington Post. Between the two of them, who needs MSNBC and CNN? I mean, these people are deranged, Eric. They are absolutely unhinged and seething with blind hatred of Donald Trump. And it doesn't matter what Trump does. It doesn't matter. 90% of the country could vote with him and support him. He could cure cancer. And these people would come out and demand that he be executed, impeached, indicted, thrown in jail. Eric, what we're seeing is a radicalization of the political scene, the likes of which I have never seen before in my life. And it scares me, frankly. It concerns me greatly.
Is there enough momentum in these Trump rallies, and he's having them a few? We're going to see an increase after the first of the year, obviously.
Right.
Will these have the kind of effect if the economy numbers line up? We've got two things involved. We've got this Mexico and Canada agreement that if it gets signed, is very important.
Right.
We have China, which gets signed, very important. Okay, those two alone are election clinchers because they put the jobs back in America.
Right.
But without them, then it becomes a matter of the wall, immigration, sanctuary cities, and Medicare for all, and free college.
Well, free to the students, not free to you and I. That's a kicker on, anything that is, quote unquote free. It really isn't free. We all pay for that in one form or another. Medicare for all isn't free. You and I pay for that with our tax dollars. Social Security, anything that is quote unquote government guaranteed or government assured is not free. And this is something, far too many people forget, especially I think those in the, in the millennial class who listen to the likes of AOC and Ilhan Omar, and even, to an extent, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. When they talk about free, there's a class of people out there who somehow think that all money in this country belongs to the government. No, it doesn't. Okay, the government has to take that from you and I and everybody else who works. Okay, nothing is free. It may seem free to the person who's getting the goodies, but somebody has to work to put in the hours to make the money for the government to take. And that's what a lot of people, unfortunately, don't understand. So I think people are waking up to that, Eric, and I think that's what you're seeing at these Trump rallies. This walk away movement, I think, is attracting a lot of people. I can't tell you how many times I have seen comments on social media from people who said, you know what, I used to be a Democrat. Not anymore, because these Democrats are crazy. They're nuts. They're out of their minds. And it's mostly over economic issues, but it's also in due in part to the unhinged nature of the Democrat Party and their allies in the media.
There's going to have to be something that's going to frighten the Republican Party enough that makes them think they're going to lose. They don't believe that impeachment's going to work. They don't believe that there was collusion, so they don't respond. They don't believe that there is, they believe that this Biden connection with Ukraine is real, but they don't believe anybody's going to do anything about it, so they don't respond. They believe that the FISA abuses were real, but they just don't respond. They don't push it to encounter, engagement. They don't push it forward and say, look, we're in your district, Nancy Pelosi. We're in your district. We don't have to be your party. Hey, you're the elected representative from this district. Okay? You don't just represent the Democrats in the district, you represent the district in the district. And we're saying to you, we want this on the floor. We want this brought to a vote. We want these issues. And if all of them did that, listen, just because they're Democrat does not mean that over the last 3 years, people haven't changed their minds about what decision they made at the polls 3 years ago. And they're looking at a blooming idiot that they put, you look at Ilhan Omar and I'm sorry, that's just the stupidest thing you ever did.
Yep.
You put in OCA or OAC or
AOC,
AOC or whatever her dynasty is, and say, this woman opens her mouth and nothing comes out of it.
Well, nothing that makes much sense. I'll put it that way. The squad, I think, is what's driving the Democrat Party now. The AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. You want to talk about unhinged? There you go, right there. I mean, that's about as unhinged as they come. Here, not too long ago, we put up something about Rashida Tlaib now selling Impeach the MF T-shirts. I mean, who would have thought, Eric, 5 years ago, who would have thought that you would have a member of Congress actually selling such a shirt?
It's just, it's remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
These are what our children are supposed to be aspiring to be. I remember JFK.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Eisenhower. I remember Truman. I remember Johnson. I remember that idiot Carter. But this is what you aspired to do, was to serve your country with honor and dignity and represent America to the world
Right.
as the strongest unified force in the world. And we are a laughing stock of America. We would sit and we would watch Parliament, and we would laugh at the men getting up there with their wigs and with their I don't even know what you would call it, but it was just an act. And so many words wrapped around so many things, you don't even know what they were asking for, and they were requesting a cup of tea.
But you got to admit, though, Eric. I mean, look, the Parliament. You got to admit, though, they know how to have a very lively debate.
They do.
I thoroughly enjoy listening to Nigel Farage just hammer his opposition, in the Labor Party. I thoroughly enjoy that. They've got good guys over there, just like we do here. But the thing that we've got here in this country, unfortunately, is an electorate that has become complacent and has been propagandized by the mainstream media to think a certain way. And then when you top that off with what social media is doing to deliberately stifle the voice of those of us who are, to the right of center, while at the same time helping the voices of those at CNN and MSNBC and so on and so forth. It's no wonder that we're in the shape that we're in right now. This is why I keep harping on this whole thing. People have got to wake up and smell the coffee and educate themselves and hear all sides of an argument. The other only alternative is to instill term limits and enforce it that way. That's the only option that we have. Otherwise, we're going to have 435 Ilhan Omars in the House of Representatives, and God help us if that ever happens. We're doomed, in my opinion.
And their first legislation, piece of legislation, will be assisted suicide. Whenever the government decides you're ready to die, we're going to assist you in that. And
right.
Unfortunately,
and it'll be free.
And it will be free. And everybody will get paid for it, and it'll be free. We've been talking with Joe Newby, host of the conservativefiringline.com, as we do on the first Monday of every month at the 12 o'clock hour, when we give you the conservative political point of view from a biblical world view. Joe, we look forward to seeing you next month. I believe it will be on November the 4th and at the 12 o'clock hour. Until then, we wish you and your family the very best. I hope your wife is recovered.
She's recovering. She's getting stronger and more ornery by the day.
Good. Glad to hear it. And many blessings on you. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.